is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
Who's ready to go back in time and talk about possibly the greatest third baseman in baseball history? I know I am. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Past Our Prime podcast. I'm your host, Scott Johnston. Got my other two hosts here with me, and Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman, and we are talking about Mike Schmidt, who was on the cover of the May 3rd, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated. 3 weeks ago, we had Joe Morgan on the cover, a member of the All-70s team at second base. And this week, another member of the All-70s team, Mike Schmidt at third base. 548 career home runs, led the league in HRs in 74, 75, 76, 80, 81, 83, 84, and 86. And the reason he's on the cover here in early May is that a couple weeks back, April 17th, 1976, do you know what he did, Billy?
No.
He hit 4 home runs in a game.
Oh, did he really?
Wow. He was at the time just the 10th player in baseball to hit 4 in a game, and the first in 15 years. All right. So, Mark, in 1961, who was the last guy to hit 4 home runs in a game?
Oh, wow. I'll say either Mickey Mantle.
That's what I was going to say.
Norm Cash.
Rusty Staub.
No. Obviously, neither of those are right.
No. But Mickey Mantle, you're on the right. You're on the right trajectory.
Roger Maris.
No. Oh gosh, 61. You would think, right?
Oh boy.
Ron Say's favorite player.
Oh really?
Oh, Willie Mays.
Willie Mays. Yep.
Wow.
The only
Mark Whitten had a 4 home run.
He did in
4 over 12
1993.
RBI.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's very funny because I was looking at the list, and you'd think there's only been 21. Okay, so fewer 4 homer games than perfect games, and you would think that you'd be like, oh, there was 1 this year and then 1 2 years later. No. There are like long years and stretches where it doesn't happen. And then last year, there were 3 of them.
Suarez, one of them?
Suarez was one.
Okay.
None of the players on my fantasy team.
It's usually more of a almost take away Schmidt and May. Seems like a lot of secondary guys that are good, but
Yeah. I remember, I think Sean Green hit 4 homers for the Dodgers against the Brewers, and he was on my fantasy team back then.
Wow.
So was that? I know it was Suarez. I can't think of the others. You'll say it. I'll know.
I believe it was Schwarber.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Nick Kurtz.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Nick Kurtz, when he first was called up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because it was, amazing with his swing, and I remember that.
And then
I hit 8 home runs in a high school baseball game once.
I hit 64 in wiffle ball.
You're right, though, Billy, that in 2017, this guy hit 4 home runs in a game. He hit less than 100 career home runs. Scooter Gannett.
Oh,
Scooter
my God.
Gannett? Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a name that I haven't talked about in a while. Anytime your name's Scooter.
Right?
That'd be great at conversations to go, I'm one of only 21 people in Major League Baseball to accomplish this.
Hey, before we get to the scorecard, we're going to talk a little book talk, The Deep. I remember this one. The book was written by Peter Benchley. Yeah. Mark, he wrote another book.
Yeah, so after Jaws, you figure that, wow, that's his biggest book. No, his next book also had to deal with water, but it was about sunken treasure, and it was called The Deep. And Frank DeFore wrote the review of this, and he didn't like it at all. He thought it was a piece of crap.
He really did.
Yeah, and The Deep ended up being a very successful book, and they made a movie out of it with Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset, who looked really good in that movie, and her acting was great too. Let me tell you. And now I'm going to get complaints from HR, but no,
That doesn't
and then
exist.
and then Lou Gossett Jr. was the bad guy in the movie, and his death in the movie is I'll never forget it. I have nightmares thinking about it. If someone has not seen the movie, I won't spoil it for you. Okay, I will. It has something to do with the
In
giant
50
eel.
years, they've blown their opportunity.
Yeah.
It's like a big eel, or I forgot, one of those really disgusting looking sea creatures that bites his head.
Ugh.
But
Well, wasn't there-
The Deep was a very successful motion picture too.
Wasn't there one scene in the movie, something underwater with, I don't know, Jacqueline Bisset?
Yeah, where she's swimming like in a shirt or something, but it's
Yeah,
kind
a
of
little white
see-through.
top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you know the thing about these book reviews, wasn't the last one or book or movie reviews they didn't like Bad News Bears? So I
Yeah.
lost all respect for their
That was the
reviews.
movie review. Well, that's a critic. It's called a critic. He's not supposed to like a lot of stuff, you know?
Well, then go to the 19th hole. Yeah, come on.
That's right. You're jumping the gun.
Scorecard brings back what's real.
Scorecard, Mark. We're just getting a few laughs, and nothing makes people laugh like smoking weed, and that's what they were doing in the 70s, weren't they?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I went to a couple Angel games, because like I said, we had a friend of the family who was the PR director of the Angels, so we would go to at least one game a year. Man, if I'd known this, I'd have been said, hey, can I hang in the outfield after the game? So the stadium manager, Tom Leeler, said, what we got out here is grass in the grass. So their outfield is a mixture of different kind of varieties of grass. There's called Marion Blue, there's Newport Blue, Bermuda, etc. And now they have one that's called marijuana. Yep, apparently the plants got there after some rock concerts that were held there, and they just started to grow into the outfield. So, which really explained to me the problem with the Angels outfield that year, because they'd all of a sudden just be in a daze, like a fly ball would be hit, and they'd just be like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to go after this ball.
Is that maybe that's where they came up with the high fly ball, right? Yeah.
High fly
There you
ball.
go. That's right.
Oh, man.
The Angels have been playing stoned for years.
Yes.
Exactly. They always get the munchies between July and September.
The beanball incident between the Mets and Cardinals highlighted ongoing dangerous norms in baseball, with Lynn McLaughlin openly admitting he intentionally threw at hitters. Now, we know they all did this back in the day, but they rarely acknowledged it. Weak penalties, a short suspension, and small fine and flawed rules around warnings allowed retaliation to escalate, and that's just what happened here. John Matlack threw at the Cubs and triggered a bench-clearing fight. So I'm surprised this didn't happen all the time back then, and maybe it did. It doesn't happen nearly as much now. They pretty much, if a guy gets hit and then another team hits a player, warnings come pretty quickly now. But back then, especially with all these, Don Drysdales and Bob Gibsons and stuff, who were just known for just oh, you just hit a home run. I don't like the way you ran around the bases. And the next time up, you're getting one right in the back,
Well, just look at recently the Angels game, Soler, he didn't even get hit. It was just up tight. And it was high and tight. It's like, no. Yeah. No, I'm not taking that, man. I make too much money here. We're brawling now.
But remember, wasn't there one? I know it's after '76. Was it Pascual Perez?
Oh, yeah.
Braves and and they just kept hitting, and the fights went into the dugout. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a quote here. It says, it's not unthinkable that the day will come when 50,000 people in a baseball stadium will erupt in violence triggered by this kind of idiocy. And that one, Billy, the fans did get into
Yes,
it.
they did.
Started throwing beers at the players, and the players started going into the stands. And, you mix violence and alcohol, you usually get really good results.
Well, you're getting closer though, because remember in the playoffs, how many times the last couple of years? I know Betts was one of them, where they go in to catch the ball and the one guy tried to take his mid off.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
you're starting to see it become a little bit closer to something possibly happening. With one guy, I'd be thinking someone like Milton Bradley, not Mookie Betts.
Right.
You know,
right.
that would turn around and slug a guy for trying to take his mid off.
Well, that guy was
They're getting a lot
that
more.
That guy should have been slugged.
And he should have been. Did they throw him out or did they keep him there? A lot of times they, I think he.
I'm not sure if they threw him out, but I'm pretty sure he was banned from
That's it.
Yankee games for life.
Yes.
Billy, you have something on a guy we talked about extensively a couple weeks ago, Jackie Jensen.
Yeah, Jackie Jensen is afraid of flying. Now his team at University of California, they don't like him. They claim that his flying phobia had him cancel a Hawaiian trip. Jensen insisted it was really just financial. Still, 22 of 25 players signed a petition citing poor communication and lack of fundamentals taught by Mr. Jensen. Well, Jensen came back with this response. College baseball is an activity for students to have fun. Okay.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, maybe it went over a little well back then, but nowadays, not a chance.
So that was at his alma mater at Cal Berkeley?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think he lasted very long there.
They said it and meant it.
They said it, Mark. Judd Heathcote again.
Yeah, again, he's back. He's a popular man. He's the new head coach at Michigan State. The man that would eventually coach Magic Johnson and lead him to a national championship. So at his initial press conference, about 50 reporters came out. And he said at the press conference, what was the difference, between that and when he had his first press conference at the University of Montana? He said, well, he and I got along just fine.
Yeah.
Talk about getting a one-on-one interview.
Every time. The reporter would be late and be like, well, we can't start the press conference
until he gets here. That's covering the Grizzlies for you.
Hey, Billy, James Lavelle Jr., I don't know if talk about a quote that has not stood the test of time.
No, he's talking about fitness in America. He says, I'm convinced that the last human sound on this continent won't be a bang, but a burp.
Oh. Yeah. You got that right. My goodness. If you look at pictures of Americans 50 years ago, 60 years ago versus now, boy, there's a lot of burping going on.
There's a lot of big fellas out there.
A first fling at Montreal. Injuries and the fear of them hovered over Olympic hopefuls like Al Feuerbach. What happened to Al, Bill?
Well, they wanted Al to get out there and show his Olympic style, but he decided to have a little fun before that, so he ran a 40-yard dash. Well, that ended that. He strained both hamstrings. Both hamstrings done. So he had to sit and watch the whole thing going on.
Yeah, so he goes out and runs this thing and hurts himself, and he's a what is he? He's a shot putter?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
So he didn't need to do that at all.
You wonder why. I mean, because your body is trained a certain way to throw a shot put, but your legs are a big part of that. So you figure your muscles would be really tight. And then you just go take off on a casual sprint. Well, if it's casual, that makes it even worse. Pulling hammies.
He said, Al Feuerbach said, if I wasn't such a dummy, I'd be out there freezing and getting soaked with the rest of those dummies. But his dumminess surpassed those by others. Despite rough weather at events like the Drake Relays, standout performances came from a bunch of stars. Some big names, Mark.
Well, it's really interesting because they're big names for different reasons. Like, for instance, there's a shot in there doing the hurdles of Nolan Cromwell, who was the Kansas quarterback at the time, but he also ran track. And then he would have an NFL career not as a quarterback, but as a defensive back. And then there's this great shot of some decathlete throwing the javelin. God, what's his name? Caitlin? No. It's Jenner. It's Bruce Jenner. And it's like, this is Bruce before he's the Olympic hero. So people know about him, but they don't really know about him. He's not on the box of Wheaties yet. And he's throwing this javelin, aimed at all his critics that would eventually come about. And then Marty LaQuarrie, a previous guest on our show, running the 5,000. But the star was a discus thrower, Mac Wilkins. He would end up winning gold in 76, silver in 84, set a world record in the discus throw. And I think the discus is really cool because it's not like a shot put. It's like a frisbee you're throwing.
Right.
A heavy frisbee, but a frisbee.
And that guy, you said he wins gold here in 76?
Yep. He wins gold in Montreal. And then 8 years later, it's not like other sports where, you kind of wear down. You can't compete at that level. 8 years later, he takes silver in the discus in L.A.
What is the one where is it called the javelin where you throw the big
spear
metal thing?
Yeah, the spear is the javelin.
What they did in Revenge of the Nerds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
You don't
good.
want to catch a discus. You don't want to catch a javelin. You don't want to catch a shot put.
I remember seeing a video a long time ago that the guy threw the javelin, and some guy was out there trying to measure it, and it stuck into his arm.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that video.
Yeah, he was like out there, and the guy threw it too far. So, not saying I'd want that to happen, but seeing it seems sort of funny.
To me, the javelin was a natural discovery thing. Hunters in the days, would use these spears to catch animals. And they probably finally said, hey, you throw the furthest spear I've ever seen. How did you get that animal at 500 feet? And that's how the competition started.
That's what Tom Hanks did in Castaway.
There you go.
See?
Yep. So
Get those
Castaway
fish.
and Revenge of the Nerds. That's our knowledge of track and field.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. He threw a javelin. No, he just threw a spear into the water. It's a javelin.
He got the fish.
He got the javelin.
It's either a clout or an out. This is a piece profiling two young power hitters struggling with what back in the day was considered massive strikeout totals. Mike Schmidt would hit 35 home runs in 1975, but 180 strikeouts. Dave Kingman, very similar numbers. Both of them, the article calls power whiffers who prioritize home runs over contact. And Bill, Schmidt didn't just hit home runs. He was a real good all-around player, could do everything pretty well.
Yeah, you don't think about it. When you think of Mike Schmidt, mind you, Mike Schmidt is the first player that I knew his middle name. Because they'd always say, Michael Jack Schmidt. First guy there. Off the beaten path there. But he also could steal bases, which I really never knew until I did a little dive into Schmidt. His first 7 years in the big leagues, he had 108 stolen bases. He had 29, I think, in 1974, whatever it was. Yeah, he was just an amazing all-around player. Obviously a good fielder as well.
Right. I had forgotten about that. I mean, I knew he was good, but 10 Gold Gloves.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking not just good, but spectacularly good.
Obviously, Hall of Famer.
Hall of Fame defender, Hall of Fame everything. I mean, Michael Jack was.
That's the only guy. First, they never said middle names of anything. They didn't say, Marcel Dion. It was, but Michael Jack Schmidt always seemed to be a guy how they talked about him.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was Marcel's middle name, Gagnon.
It was Gagnon.
Yeah.
Marcel Gagnon Dion. Yeah.
The only other people we know their middle name?
Criminals.
Serial killers.
Yes. Or some presidents. Some presidents. William
Yeah.
Henry Harrison,
Yeah.
Schmidt was brutally self-critical, admitting he knows he should shorten his swing and protect the plate with two strikes. Yet often he swings for the fences. Get a load of this. He was dropped from third to sixth in the lineup as manager Danny Ozark tried to curb his strikeouts. Today he'd be hitting leadoff.
Yeah. Hitting leadoff with a higher strikeouts than his 149 he had in 76.
Yep.
That's the trade-off you took. You did
That's right.
strikeouts for power,
That's right.
and he had 9 homers going into this issue, and Dave Kingman, the other big power hitter for the Mets, had 7. And those guys would end up competing neck and neck for the home run title. Schmidt would end up winning it with 38, and Kingman right behind him with 37.
Now, Kingman is when I grew up. He was one of the few guys that was an all or nothing guy. At least that's how they made it out. He struck out or hit a home run.
Yep.
Right. I think Schmidt was a little bit better on the average, But, and Schmidt owned our guest coming up, Jamie Moyer. So I'll tread lightly on asking how Schmidt fared against Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing about Schmidt is that he walked a ton. So
Yeah.
his batting average was never he was never a real 300 guy, but he walked a lot. So OPS, back then they'd never heard of OPS, but it was well over 900, sometimes into the 1,000 range. So one of the all-time greats. Kingman, on the other hand, he kind of was an all or nothing guy. He didn't walk much. He just hit a lot of home runs. In fact, I think his final year in baseball, he was not a very well-liked man from what I've read. I think he played for the A's in '84 and hit like 36 home runs, and that was it. He went out, no one wanted to sign him anymore, and his career ended up with, he came close to 500 career home runs, 450 or something like that. So,
The crazy thing, he only had 40 home runs once in his career, just once. And I think he had over 100 RBIs twice, which is odd when you think of a guy that has that type of power and that type of swing and miss ability. So,
Well, it's like Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron was just a very consistent hitter
Yeah.
for many, many years. Like Willie Mays had bigger years, but didn't have the overall longevity of consistency of homers that Aaron did, and that's why Aaron set the record.
there's never been a story where I've read or heard about him where they say, Dave Kingman, good man.
I figure that 99% of the time I fail, it's because of lousy hitting, not good pitching. So Mike Schmidt said that. That's called confidence. If you're good, it's called confidence. If you're not that good, it's called arrogance. So, but he was one of the all-time greats. Now, when you're talking Mike Schmidt, the first word that comes to mind often is power. He had it in spades. But for our guest, that's not exactly how you would describe his style. Jamie Moyer was one of baseball's ultimate longevity stories, a crafty lefty who pitched in the majors for an astonishing 25 seasons. Debuted in 1986, was still winning games into his late 40s. Did not rely on overpowering the word of the day, velo, velocity, but on pinpoint control, movement, and intelligence more than anything. He won 269 games. He was an all-star, helped the Phillies capture the 2008 World Series, proving that brains and finesse can outlast, raw power. And Jamie joins us now on the Past Our Prime podcast. Hey, Jamie, thanks for coming on with us today.
My pleasure. Love talking baseball.
Wonderful. Great. Let's do it then. You grew up about 40 miles outside Philly. What did Mike Schmidt and those Philly teams mean to you as a kid?
Well, as a kid, we'll call it hyperactive. So sitting in front of a television was kind of boring for me. I'd rather be out in the yard playing, but I did watch a lot of games, but I never sat and watched a whole game. But as a young boy in the Philadelphia area, it's a lot of dreaming. I hope, I would love to, look, my idol was Steve Carlton. So, I got to watch Steve pitch quite often. When I was in college at St. Joe's, I had the great opportunity of meeting Steve and Claude Osteen, who was the pitching coach at that time. So that, I know it's a little off track of Mike, but it comes full circle. At the end of my career, I come back and pitch in Philly and was fortunate enough to be on the '08 World Series championship team. And upon retirement, I did some broadcasting, and I had bumped into Mike several times, during my career, and I did a little bit of broadcasting with Mike Schmidt. So that was pretty cool. But as a young boy watching the Phillies and, the Pete Roses, the Larry Boas, the Mike Schmidts, the Steve Carltons, the Manny Trios, I was a teammate of Manny Trios my rookie year in Chicago. It was pretty cool. Watching their style of baseball in Veterans Stadium. And Mike, obviously being, he's very well known for the power that he produced as a hitter, but he was a very, very, very good third baseman as well. Again, times were different. The eras were different. if you're comparing yesteryear to today or in the last 10 years, and the style of play was a little different as well. But, my biggest memory was sitting and like, man, what do I have to do to become a Major League Baseball player? That was my dream as a little boy, who many of us had that dream. And, my dream came true. After I left St. Joe's, I had the opportunity to sign with the Cubs and play for many years of Major League Baseball. So, and again, be able to rub elbows with guys like Mike Schmidt. And I can remember I think I had beat the Phillies once early in my career. And there was my college coach sent me this several years ago. It was an old newspaper article about Mike talking like, if we can't beat Moyer, then, something's wrong. So, yeah. Yeah.
I think it was your 22nd season. I could be off a year or two when you finally got to put on a Phillies uniform. How important was it for you to put on that uniform so close to home?
Well, you know what? I don't know that I realized how important it was. I was in my 40s, contemplating retirement, before I had gotten traded to Philadelphia in '06. And boy, when I went to Philadelphia in August of '06, it was kind of a shot in the arm for me. The energy in the clubhouse was wonderful. The clubhouse was fairly youthful, and there was a pretty good spattering of farm-raised kids that had come up to the big leagues through the Philadelphia Phillies organization. So, the little taste that I got August and September of '06 kind of relit the fire for me. And like I said, I was contemplating retiring at the end of that '06 season before I got traded, and ended up playing 6 more years.
Mm-hmm.
And was able to pitch for a world championship team. I was able to start game 3. I mean, you just never know as a player what's what's ahead of you. And as a player, I think you're always trying to prepare, and then you say, well, prepare for what? You're preparing for, in the off season, you're preparing, to get into spring training and running that marathon of a season. But during the season, you're fine tuning and and as you get into the middle of the season and you get to July and August, what they call the dog days, you figure out how to get through the dog days. And baseball for me was a game of adversity. A team wins and loses partially on how they deal with adversity or success, honestly. And, through my baseball life experiences, I saw all walks of how that can work or how it cannot work or didn't work. So, again, one door closes, another door opens, opportunities are there. And to me, I feel like as a baseball player, the opportunities are always there. It's what you make of the opportunity that's in front of you.
You were talking about at the end of the '06 season considering retirement. Even earlier, I think in '91, the Cardinals sent you to the minors and then release you. You go to spring training with the Cubs to get released, and then you're in the minor league system of the Tigers. At that early stage in the '90s, did you think at any point in time, okay, it was a nice run, but my career is over?
I never thought it was over. There were people telling me it was over. There were people offering me jobs. When I went back to the Cubs for the second time, they offered me a coaching job. Well, they already had a pitching coach in it was one of the cities in Illinois, Rockford, maybe. And it was the end of spring training, and I'm like, well, they're like, well, you could be like an associate pitching coach, and we'll let you throw bullpens, and if somebody wants to pick you up, they can pick you up. And I'm like, nah, I'm not seeing it that way. I still felt like I had something to offer to baseball. I didn't know what it was, but I felt like I had something to offer to baseball. I was 29 years old.
Mhm.
You know, the way I looked at it, my perception was I can coach the rest of my life. I can't play the rest of my life. And I put a lot of time and a lot of effort. And look, there were many a times, you know, this came back on me. I didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me. So, but through the baseball experiences, life experiences that I had taught me a lot. And so I used my eyes and my ears, and I had to continually challenge myself. And I think one of my biggest hurdles was the mental side of the game. And I had the good fortune of spending 2.5 days with Harvey Dorfman in person at his home in Prescott, Arizona. And at that point, can't say the light went on, but I felt like another door opened. And it was up to me to understand and work on my own mental approach, my own psyche. You know, as you alluded earlier, you know, the stuff wasn't, you know, I didn't light up the radar gun. I didn't, you know, strike out 10 a game. You know, my style was not that style. But the eras that I played in, it was expected that you made your 32, 33 starts a season and you contributed on a daily basis. Look, early in my career, Greg Maddux and I pinch ran when we were with the Cubs. You know, what major league team would do that now with a starting pitcher? Because, you know, you know, I was never fast, but I guess they felt like I knew how to run the bases a little bit. But we were pinch runners, so they didn't have to use a position player to pinch run. Right? I mean, that's how the game was played. Right? And, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not trying to bash today's game. I'm just creating to show you the difference in the game.
Mhm.
Right? Or differences. And there were times pitchers would go up to pinch hit, to bunt. The whole ballpark, the opposing team knew why he was there. But it was a sacrifice bunt. Right? That's the game. That's how the game was played and managed.
Sacrifice bunt. What's that?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So when you start your career in Chicago in '86, the first time you faced Mike Schmidt, you know, a guy that you grew up, you know,
Yeah.
idolizing, what was that like, and what was that memory of that first meeting?
Kind of intimidating. I think it was kind of intimidating to face the Phillies in general because it's a team I grew up watching. And believe it or not, who do you think my first major league start was against? You know, it was the Phillies, but it was against Steve Carlton, my idol. Right? And we ended up winning the game. At that point, my career could have been over in my mind. Right? You face your idol and you face your hometown team and you win. You know, I was pretty green. I was pretty naive at that point in time, but man, that was pretty cool to face the Phillies. But you know, to face the Mike, you know, it's like, oh boy, it's here. He's 60 feet 6 inches away from you. Now you've got to compete. And boy, you know, was I intimidated? Maybe a little bit. But boy, if you know, I look back and I think as players in general, you know, you look into the latter part of your career versus the younger part of your career, the beginning of your career, and you think, geez, if I knew then what I know now, things might have been a little different. And that's really my response is, you know, facing the Mike Schmidts and the Von Hayeses and the Gary or Maddox and Lazinski, and you know, I mean, it was like, you know, it was like, oh, I was in awe that I was on the same field with them.
And then your career comes full circle. I mean, after a great stint in Seattle, I mean, winning 17 games one year, you come to the Phillies, and in '08 you get to win a World Series. What was the feeling, first of all, putting on that Phillies uniform and then achieving the ultimate goal?
Well, I was very proud to put the Phillies uniform on. And, you know, again, you know, you don't know where it's going to go, but like I said, the energy that was in that clubhouse, the experience, we did have some experienced players. Many professionals were in that clubhouse with unbelievable work ethic. And to me, that's what it's kind of an unspoken word when you're in a clubhouse and you just see people, zigzagging around the clubhouse or in the weight room or out on the field or in the batting cages or in the bullpen working. And whether it's, in Philadelphia or during spring training, you kind of get it, right? You kind of get it. There weren't many people sitting idle in their chairs in front of their locker all afternoon. It was very workmanlike. People were working hard. They were diligently working at their craft, watching video. Video started to become a thing, right? And the hitters could watch the starting pitcher and what he's done throughout up until that point of the season. Same way with the relief pitchers. I know Chase Utley was big on video, and a lot of guys were big on video. And that's kind of the thing in today's game. Video is huge, right? For hitters. I have a son playing at Nebraska. They watch video. It's now trickled down into the college levels. So, and it's just information, right? But it's what you do and how you utilize that information. To me, that information was overload. I kept notes on hitters. And then as I got into the latter part of my career, I started keeping pitching charts and making notes on the pitching charts. And if there was a mistake on pitches, it was a challenge for me to go back and think through a game that I previously pitched and change pitches and make comments on how maybe the manager managed, or if they hit and ran, or anything that they did that stood out to me. So I was creating my own little log on with pen and paper or pencil and paper, rather than using an iPad or a computer or a system that had endless video, like pulling up facing say facing Prince Fielder, all the curveballs he swung and missed at. That's what you could punch into a computer and it would spit it right back out, and you'd have video of that in seconds. Right? That's where the game is today. In the early eras that I played in, they were using VHS tapes.
And I know this. I want to ask you, Jamie. I know this might be a rumor that I've read. Did you take the pitching rubber after the Phillies won the World Series?
I have 3 pitching rubbers.
Tell me about that one.
The world, yeah. So, we win the World Series. Of course, you're celebrating on the field. You're in the clubhouse. You're back out on the field. Well, when I came back out on the field, family was there, and teammates' families, and front office, this, that, and the other. And you're kind of, running around. And for whatever reason, I looked up and I looked towards the mound, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the pitching rubber's in the mound. I wonder if I could get that. So, I'd find one of the grounds crew guys and I said, hey, is there any way I could grab that pitching rubber? And they're like, well, I think the league wants it. I'm like, well, I don't know. I think I'd rather have it. So they're like, you want us to go get a pick and shovel? And I'm like, of course. So they ran down and got the pick and shovel, and they come out and I'm like, I grabbed the pick and I started picking away, and I was out of breath, and so they ended up helping me dig it out. And that was the start of collecting pitching rubbers. And I have it here in my home. I have that one. I have the rubber from when I was with Seattle and we won 116 games. And I also have the rubber in Colorado, my last major league win.
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit before that. I'm going to go back to 1987. I think it was your second start of the year. You had a no-hitter through 8 innings versus the Phillies. Tell me about that game, and how exciting was that going into the 9th, knowing if you could no-hit the team you fought?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in 86, I believe I had back-to-back starts against the Phillies. Obviously, my first start was in Chicago. We win the game. 5-6 days later, we go to Philadelphia. I start again against Philadelphia. Now, again, I grew up, as you said, 40 miles from there. 2 busloads of people come down to the game. It's all excitement, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't get out. I don't think I get out of the second inning. You want to talk about being embarrassed? I was thoroughly embarrassed, right? And in the clubhouse after the game. I was lockering beside Rick Sutcliffe, and I was sitting in my chair, just unbelievably humbled. Right, the game just humbled me. Right, and Rick Sutcliffe puts his hand on my shoulder, and he kind of smirks and, hey kid, we've all been there. This game will humble you. And, I remember that like it just happened yesterday. There's just things during my career that are vivid in my mind. And then jump to 87. I get to start against the Phillies, and I had a fair amount of strikeouts. And, again, I probably could have thrown a few more strikes in my early years as well. I had several walks. And I had Juan Samuel had come up for I believe it was his fourth at bat, and I had struck him out. I think it was 3 times in a row on changeups. And this particular at bat, I hung a changeup, and he hit a little humpback liner over the second baseman, breaks up the no hitter. Trying to think who came up. I think I gave up a hit or a walk, and then I think Von Hayes came up, and like it was either Von Hayes or Mike Schmidt hit a line drive right back over my head, and before I knew it, I was out of the game, and we almost lost the game. I think we won that game 3-2, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, talk about exciting. Taking a no hitter. Deep into a game. Yeah, I mean, I had thrown a couple in high school. Again, it was high school. So yeah, I mean, look, personal, for me, personal things are not at the top of my list while you're playing. It's about the team. It's about, what you bring to a team on a consistent basis. And yeah, it would have been nice to throw a no-hitter, but I think more importantly, again, I was still trying to establish myself as a major league pitcher, and I don't think I was quite established at that point. But an exciting day, and to be able to do that in Philadelphia, like I said, after that start in '86, where boy, I really struggled.
So what was it like the first time you met Mike Schmidt? Here's a guy you watched as a kid. Was there nervousness? What was it about him?
I think maybe I didn't really meet him, but it was like around the visiting team always stretched near the batting cage, or when the home team was hitting. So seeing guys, it's like, ooh, you see guys walk out, Lance Parrish, Mike Schmidt, Greg Luzinski, and you're like, whoa, they're bigger than lifelike. I mean, it's like, and again, it's what I think we create in our minds, right? And I have the utmost respect for all of those guys and all of the players that I played against in my career. But I think maybe the first time I met him, it was just a handshake and, hey, how you doing? And it was just that that professionalism back and forth with each other. But my opportunities as a broadcaster, I really, now we're back to being just normal people, right? We're no longer playing, and we're all on the same level. And I've always really enjoyed being around Mike.
Jamie, I think back in the day when we were growing up watching these guys, they weren't on TV every day.
Right.
So seeing them in person was kind of like seeing the Eiffel Tower for the first time. You're like, oh my God, these people are real,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can understand how you would
Great
feel
analogy. I like that. Yeah.
We are talking with Jamie Moyer, who won 269 games in his 25-year career, won 20 games with the Mariners twice in 2001 on that unbelievable 116 win team, and 21 games again in 2003, and then went 16-7 in 2008 for the Phillies championship team at the age of 45. Jamie, guys like you, Tom Glavine, Mark Burley, you guys won games not by throwing 98, but by locating and outthinking the hitters. Why can't guys like you pitch in today's game?
Well, we don't have the velocity, nor do we have the spin rates. And, guys like us pitched to locations and changing speeds. And I will also add that, I came to the belief or the understanding that everybody has an ego. Everybody in this world has some sense of an ego. And I learned that hitters sometimes have real big egos. So you start to learn about an ego of a player and understand that, those guys in the middle of the lineup, why are they getting paid the way they're getting paid? They drive in runs and they hit home runs, right? So how do we defense that, or how do we take advantage of that? And for me, it was, changing speeds, showing pitches that were close to the play. First of all, you got to get ahead, right? But once you can get ahead, you can throw pitches that out of hand look like a strike, but when they get to the zone, they're moving out of the zone, right? And I guess you call that, is it pitch sequencing?
Mhm.
So that's the key word today, but it's just back when I played, it was just repetitive mechanics. And if you could repeat your mechanics, you could be consistent at home plate. That's my belief. If you cannot repeat your mechanics, and you see that vividly in today's game, these guys are pitching at max effort, right? And trying to get as much spin rate on the ball, that location is not as important as velocity. They think the power, it can override the location, and it does at times. But there are such, if you need a ground ball, what do? You throw an off speed pitch, you jam a guy, that's I don't I my guess is that's not what's thought about in today's game, right? But in the eras that I played in, that's how it was taught, right? You're trying to set up a hitter. You're the first, your first at bat against a hitter may dictate how you're going to pitch to that hitter for the rest of the day, right? Based on the results of that. Or vice versa, the first at bat against a pitcher dictates your at bats for the rest of the day, right? So it's a chess game, and you're just moving the pieces around. And again, as you start to play the game, you start to create a history with players and hitters and situations. And just like today and previously, you start to look at sequences, first pitch strikes, or what you're throwing for strikes, how you're getting people out, what your out pitch is. Hitters start to sit on pitches. Manny Ramirez, I never played with Manny, but the rumor was Manny Ramirez will come up and sit on your best pitch for the whole game. If he gets it, he's going to hit it, right? If he doesn't get it, he's not going to hit it. And you know what? What I was told, the mindset was, hey, if I go for 4, I'm going to get 4 bets tomorrow. I'll get them tomorrow, right? And wow, what a great way to go. If that's true, as a hitter, what a great way to go through a career, right? I'm sure he probably didn't have those thoughts early on, but as he gained experience, that's what I was told. So now I had to have a little more awareness when I faced a guy like Manny Ramirez, right? So, and if the crazy thing with Manny, it was like, all right, I could get strike 1, strike 2, but I really struggled getting the, strike 3 by him. He'd put the ball in play. He had pretty good success against me. And it was frustrating. But, he's doing his job and I'm trying to do my job, right?
Right.
So, and the other thing too is I think, there's players that you feel like you have success against, and then there's other players you don't have quite that same success. And why that is, I don't know. It's just how it works out. And I ultimately, for me, it's like, okay, I know the guys that are having more success against me. Maybe I can pitch around them or don't have to show them as much until I really, if I get into a bind and have to face them and have to pitch to them.
So when your career is over with Philadelphia, it looks like that's it. But then in 2012, you end up in Colorado. How did that come about? And then what did it feel like at the age of 49 to win a Major League Baseball game?
Yeah, well, it was in 10. I tore my UCL partially and missed a good bit of that season. Or wait, no, yeah, 10. Um, and I rehabbed, being 47 years old, I rehabbed and tried to come back at the end of the season. They're like, no, we can't fit you into this, what we're doing here. So basically I was done. I was a free agent. And so I looked into going to the Dominican to pitch, just to prove not only to myself, but to prove to the game of baseball that I was healthy and I was going to be a free agent. And I went down there and it was on a handshake with Moises Alou, excuse me. That I'd pitched 3 games, 1 inning, 2 innings, and 3 innings. And I got to my 3rd game and I completely tore my UCL. And also tore my flexor pronator off the bone. So came home, got scans, and went to Dr. Yoakum. He walked in the room, boy goes, boy, you tore that pretty good. He goes, well, I can fix that. You're never going to play again. And I looked at him and I said, excuse me? And he goes, yeah, well, you're 47 years old and, you're going to miss a year for rehab. And you're going to be 49. Nobody plays it at 49. And I said, Doc, I accept that as a challenge. And so we continued to talk. And he said, well, I can fix this, but you have a pronator tear. And he goes, there's a doctor at Hospital for Special Surgery in New York has probably done the most repairs of the flexor pronator. I recommend you go to him. So I said, okay, can you give him a call? So he called him, had it repaired. Missed my 48 season, my 48th year of life season, and signed with the Rockies as a free agent, and made the team out of spring training. It was a team kind of looking for an identity, and they signed Jason Giambi and myself as veterans to come in and try to help that along. Look, a guy coming back from Tommy John on a team that had some talent, but still trying to find themselves. And we didn't play well, and I didn't pitch consistently well. But I pitched enough to win 2 games, which was kind of cool for me. Unfortunately, I can't talk to him now, but, Doc was like, yeah, you're not going to play again. I said, yeah, I am. So that was part of the challenge, but I think that it was more of a challenge for me more than with the Doc. And it was, I looked at it as, my whole career was a challenge, and you face a hurdle, and what are you going to do? Are you going to fall and hide behind it, or are you going to try to get over it? And I felt like I still had the energy and the push to try to get over it.
Yeah, I think what must have helped you too is you always were sort of not a hard thrower like a Frank Tanana, who was a hard throwing lefty, then gets hurt and has to totally readjust his game.
Right.
You didn't have to readjust your game.
Right. Correct. And, I felt like I had the work ethic behind me. And, the Tommy John thing, again, you talk to any doctor today and it's like going in to get your oil changed in your car. But the flexor pronator was the one that was a little more tricky. And, having the expertise at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, I think that really helped me. If that wasn't the case, then, I probably would not have been able to come back. Lightning strikes as answers try. Bring chaos in the air.
True or false? There is also an actor by the name of Jamie Moyer.
True.
Oh,
Yep.
That is correct.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, but here's the follow-up. Is that a man or a woman?
Ooh. I think it's a man.
Nope, it's a woman.
A woman.
It's spelled Jaime, Moyer.
Wow. Okay.
And she's appeared. She's done a lot of voiceover work, but she's
Okay.
constantly acting. A lot of animation shows and stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay.
No.
Thanks for that
We
information.
stumped him.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's why it's called trivia. You'll never
Yeah.
use it again.
Yep. Yep.
You know, Jamie, when you look at your career, do you ever look back and think you played 25 years, 4 decades? How does someone do that in Major League Baseball?
Great question. And I mean, look, I'd like to say I felt like I was in control of my mind over time. I was in control of my destiny. I didn't feel like I was a nuisance or a problem to an organization or a team. I felt like if I was going to be on a team, I needed to contribute. And I felt as I started to go through my career, I started to understand what contribution was. And I also understood what was expected of me. And as I mentioned before, going to the post every 5 days, making your starts, eating up innings. I'm still to the belief. I know I'm a proven dinosaur. That a starting rotation for me, it was explained, this was early in my career, it was explained to me this way. A starting rotation is 5 guys making 32 to 33 starts, and each guy is expected to pitch 200 plus innings, right? If you look at a full 162 game season, there's 1,500 innings that need to be pitched. So if your rotation can pitch the bulk of those innings, which is 1,000 plus innings, it takes stress off your bullpen. It takes your bullpen doesn't pitch as many meaningless innings. So when you bring your bullpen guys in to pitch meaningful innings, they're sharper and more prepared to pitch. To me, that's how it was explained. To me, that was a responsibility, and I took pride in being able to do that. And when I was not able to do that, that was on me. I had to look in the mirror and figure out why that wasn't happening.
So is that to say now when you watch baseball and they're having a bullpen game, you don't like that too much?
Yeah, it's not. It's interesting to watch, and it's interesting to see how the change of the game, how they've figured out ways to get through a game, to get through a month, to get through a season. It's pretty spectacular, but you see the wear and tear on athletes. The simple way that I explain it to people, if you get in your car and say you were on a road that was 500 miles, 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles long, and you started your car, you put it in drive, and you put your foot on the accelerator and put it to the floor, how long is your car going to last? Right? Now you're asking human beings to perform at that same level. How long are they going to last? Right? And look, again, I'm not here to, get on baseball for what they're doing, but that's the difference, right? And we're human beings. We have ligaments and tendons, and things just they tear, they lose their elasticity, and you've got problems. So, and again, the way I look at it too is there's so many pitchers in the corral. When somebody gets hurt, they just open the corral door and here comes another one, coming out of the corral. It's just, and that's how baseball has evolved in the 2020s, right? Yeah. And that's the, part of the difference in the game. Like it or dislike it, I don't really care. I'm no longer involved with it, but it's different when you sit and watch a game.
Well, I don't like it.
That's our dinosaurs coming out.
No, and it's and I get it, the replays, and we're trying to make the game perfect. And baseball for me, baseball is a game of adversity. And who deals with that adversity the best and the most consistent, right? when a guy infielder boots a ball, that's an error. An errant throw, that's an error. You hang a pitch, it's a home run or a ball through the gap. A team doesn't hit well. I mean, the Phillies right now, they've lost 6 in a row. All right, what's going to happen? We're only in April. I get it. But, how is the team going to rally around this? What are they going to do?
Yep.
Right. And that's the game right there. Right. But we're now putting computers to it. We're putting cameras to it, and we're trying to make it a perfect game where, if there's a borderline call and you can now challenge it. Oh, well, we want to get the call right. Well, I get that we want to get the call right. Well, there's another pitch coming. The pitcher has another chance. The hitter has another chance. The umpire has another chance. Right? We play the game because we're dealing with adversity.
Yep.
And that's it also works on your character, right? As an individual and as a team, right? And we don't have arguments anymore. That was part of the entertainment of the game, right? And I can even remember, the last several years of my career where, the older people on the bench or in the clubhouse are like, you come in and you're hitting and there's nobody on the bench, where are the guys? Well, they're in watching videos. Well, the big thing was, let's keep everybody on the bench and let them stay in the flow of the game and see the game and feel the game. Again, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And look, if you want to be in the game, you got to move with the game, right? And if you don't move with the game, and I also look at back, all right, what about, so I got caught up in 86. So what about the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, and the 40s? If you talk to any of those players, they're saying the same thing about us who played in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, right? It just kind of evolves, right? And this is where the game, so, I'll include myself with you dinosaurs, right? And it's just the way it is. It's the way it is.
You can be an honorary member of the Past Our Prime group.
Okay.
Who
I'll accept.
don't like the way things are going.
Yep.
Mark mentioned in the early 90s it almost came to an end, and then you said in 2006 you were ready, and then you ended up, Tommy John, and you come back. And when Bill asked you what made you survive 25 years, there was one thing that you didn't say, but let me just say this for you, or throw this out there. You had to love baseball.
Oh, passion, love the game. Love the game. Ate, slept, and drank it. And I still do. I still have games on in the background. And like you said, I watch a lot of college baseball. I'm having a blast chasing my son who's playing at Nebraska this year. And they're now, as of today, they're in the top 20. They just upset USC they swept USC last weekend, who was 12 in the country. And he's having a wonderful year, but his team is having a wonderful year. And that, to me, is the joy of it. And kind of the naivety of it, right? They're young kids. They love the game. They're learning the game. And they're learning it, way differently than I learned it. The college game is completely different in today's terms than it, was again, when I was in college. But the joy that it brings me to watch, whether it's my son playing or his team playing or other college games, the joy of just these kids being so naive to the game, the whole game, but their whole world is wrapped around their team and their season. And it's just, to me, there's something magical about that.
From
and it's just naive. It's simple. It's naive,
right.
right? There's not, I get it. There's media around it and there's social media with it. And I've fallen into a little bit of that trap in social media and follow it and tag things and all that. But it's the game. It's the game. And I just look, my son, it's been, he went to Oregon, he got cut. He went to San Jacinto Junior College and played there 2 years. And now he's at Nebraska. But it's the people he's met. It's the life experiences that he's had. It's the ups and downs. He's really maturing and growing, and that's what brings me a lot of joy as a dad.
From a kid growing up outside Philly to a World Series champion with the Philadelphia Phillies, his career all about longevity, intelligence, and yes, love of the game. Jamie Moyer, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it today.
All right. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Great.
Thank you.
Like to do it again sometime.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All
glad
right.
to.
Let me know.
Rookie cards of baseball, basketball, and football stars are iconic pieces of American history, and they have been outstanding investments over the last 50 years. Now, key issues of Sports Illustrated, professionally graded and encapsulated by CGC, have emerged as an exciting alternative to trading cards. ThePit.com is the leading online exchange for investment-grade sports magazines. General Manager Mark Humphreys offers Sports Illustrated first cover editions featuring stars like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., and so many more. Joining us now is the CEO of ThePit.com, Mark Humphreys, an expert in the field of collectibles. And Mark, May 3rd, 1976, maybe the greatest third baseman to ever play the game on the cover, Mike Schmidt.
Yes, I agree. Mike Schmidt, the greatest of all time, third baseman on the cover, May 3rd, 1976. And collectors love this issue because he's the GOAT at that position. And also because this is a first cover. And here it's graded, a graded copy 9.0 by CGC, the pioneer in mass market graded magazines and comic book collecting. So Schmidt, for all his greatness, I think is still underappreciated, which often happens with players who are so good at everything. I think there's a tendency for fans to idolize and appreciate more the one-dimensional player. But Schmidt was not only a great home run hitter, everyone knows that. He led the league in homers 7 or 8 times. He was an MVP 3 times, but he was also a very high on-base percentage guy, and he won 10 Gold Gloves. And this cover in 1976 shows Schmidt at the an early peak of his career, although he had other peaks. It was the 3rd consecutive year Schmidt would lead the league in home runs. It was the first of his 10 Gold Gloves, including 9 in a row. Schmidt had been great as early as 1974. In fact, I love his 1974 season. That's my favorite Mike Schmidt season, because in 1973, he was a rookie, highly regarded, first-round draft pick, but he hit 196 that year in just under 400 at-bats. And by traditional measures, of course, that would have been a failure. But Schmidt was so good in the other aspects of the game that the Phillies retained great confidence in him. And he rewarded that by hitting 282 in 1974. And in 1974, he actually set his own career high for wins above replacement, which of course didn't exist back then. But the statisticians have all the data they need to go back and retroactively look at it. And Schmidt was so great at getting on base, hitting homers, and playing first class third base, that he registered almost 10 wins above replacement, which is unusual even in MVP seasons. He finished 6th in the MVP voting that year, which I guess is actually somewhat a credit to the voters, that they understood how great this guy was, even though he was a sub-Mendoza line hitter the previous year. But by 76, when this issue comes out, he had solidified his position as the best third baseman of the time. and he would, of course, become the greatest of all time by the end of his career. I paid almost $1,000 for this magazine in a heritage auction a couple years ago, and I'm very happy with that purchase. It's a newsstand edition, as are all the most collectible ones. There are only 12 of these that have been graded by CGC in newsstand condition, and only 3 of them at the 9.0 or higher level. This is a 9.0. You see the grade up here. There are also one each graded 9.2 and 9.4, which basically represents an extremely high condition, almost flawless magazine.
Only thepit.com offers competitive buy now and sell now quotes on graded magazines online, as well as many of the most popular modern PSA graded rookie cards, including Shohei Ohtani, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Nikola Jokic, and Steph Curry. Trade sports stars like stocks at thepit.com. Nice to be the Derby favorite, but yeah, we're just a couple days away from talking about this year's winner of the Kentucky Derby. Basically, it's a 2-horse race from all accounts. Honest Pleasure and Bold Forbes. We're going to have, as Mark always says, a spoiler alert here. Bold Forbes wins it. Angel Cordero is on the on the mount. We'll talk with Angel next week when he joins us from the winner's circle.
Bold Forbes won?
Damn
it.
Go put some money on it.
It's on tape. Oh. Thanks.
Speaking of, Bill, Honest Pleasure's all-time record, I mean, he didn't win the big ones, but he was almost always in the top 3 or in the money, as they say.
Yeah, but I mean, he didn't win them all, but in 25 starts, he had 12 wins, 6 seconds, and 2/3. He made close to $900,000. And what was it, going into the Kentucky Derby? I think he'd won 8 or 9 races in a row. So, you know, Honest Pleasure was a great horse, just couldn't get over the hump on a good portion of his races.
But don't make any waves. Boy, was this guy a interesting fella. Sam Hernandez, his journey took him from illiteracy to academic success at Oregon State, where he excelled as both a student and a diver, finding purpose and direction. Bill, this guy was really a misunderstood dude.
Yeah, when he was in high school, they called him, not illiterate, I'll use the word they used back then, they called him mentally retarded. They said he just couldn't learn, wasn't that smart. But years later, after enrolling in Oregon State, his GPA was 4.0, and he was also the school's top diver. So he sure seemed to find himself as he got older.
You know, a lot of times, especially young males, and Bill, I'm not calling you retarded, but I'm just making a point here.
Just hitting about it.
Close enough, man. Close enough.
No, but like as 15, 16-year-olds, your mind's going everywhere. You got now it's probably ADHD is what he had.
Yes.
And you just can't concentrate. And you're working with little kids. I'm sure you see little boys. Back then, we made the mistake of thinking they were idiots because they couldn't concentrate, whereas they were literally the proverbial, reading a story, squirrel, I mean, they just couldn't concentrate for more than 30 seconds. And that was probably this guy, because you don't go from being, a moron to a 4.0 overnight. He had to have always been smart.
But he also, but a lot of times, and I'll say with me, because you're always goofing around, you get sort of put into a corner, not literally, but you get put in a corner where no one wants to work with you. So with probably Sam Hernandez, probably the same way, where he couldn't learn as quickly as the kid sitting next to him. So they sort of said, "Oh, just let Sam do what he wants. I don't want to deal with it." That's what a lot of times happens in these situations.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
By the way, I take offense for you calling Bill the R word. He's specially gifted. Okay.
Thank you. Right. No, I was actually my what was it? Intelligent quotient. I had a high IQ as a kid. Very.
Oh, I believe that.
But I couldn't focus.
Right.
Like Scott said, I'd go into class and I'd be thinking, "Pretty girl. Oh, what's that on the wall? You want me to do what?" But then they actually, when I was in high school, I failed Algebra 1. I didn't want to do the work. So they still put me in Algebra 2 and I got an A. And so they called my parents and said, "That's impossible. Yeah. He's not supposed to do better in Algebra 2 than he did in Algebra 1. And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I like the teacher." Because
Yeah.
the teacher reached me. The teacher was able to make it sort of fun and interesting, and there you go. And so I'm not
Right.
saying that happened to Hernandez because he got married. He found a woman that really cared for him. He ended up loving diving. So in a sense, I think it all worked out. And a lot of times, like you said, Scott, you get out of that being 15 or 16 where people think you're, ready for the world and you're not. So good for him for what he did.
Now he's a cliff diver, which kind of goes back to playing into being retarded because you got to be kind of crazy to be jumping off those cliffs. And I'm going to make my argument once again for Bill because Bill, you jumped off cliffs back.
I did. I did. In Laguna Beach, there was these cliffs that we went up one day and they said, "Oh yeah, it's really fun." But before you jump, they say you got to wait for the tide to come in because if you don't and you don't jump about 10 feet out, you're going to hit the rocks. And we all know what happens from like 30, 40 feet up. So yeah, I jumped. And that's exactly what Hernandez did. He had to, when you jumped in Acapulco, he had to leap 25 feet out to avoid the rocks. And that impact takes 2.5 seconds. So yes, Sam and I have so many great things in common. I just never got a 4.0.
And you know what? It's not the R word. It's not specially gifted. It's stupidity. That's what cliff diving is.
That's what I'm saying. We got to get back to the actual words. No, that's stupid. No, you're just challenged. No, I walked up to a cliff. I was told not to jump until the tide came in. Jump 10 feet out. Yeah, that's smart.
Well, I think we've kind of glossed over the fact that behind all this, he was an incredibly successful cliff diver, which back then was actually kind of a sport. It would be on Wide World of Sports. You'd see it on TV every once in a while. He won the Acapulco Cliff Diving Championship, I think twice.
Twice, yeah, 77, 79.
And we're talking, these things were like 150, 160 feet high. I mean,
85 feet in Acapulco.
Oh.
But he went higher than that later on at 156 and 158. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Scott.
No, that's great.
He not only did that, guys would jump off the cliff. And Sam used to say, you can't call it diving if you're landing it on your feet. So he was actually the first guy that actually dove off them. Oh. Everyone else was jumping and landing straight down. He said, no, come on, that's not diving. Diving's when you go in diving, not on your feet. Yeah. But 85 feet in Acapulco.
Reaching for the stars, the movement of religion in sports called Sportianity is growing, especially in football, where chapel services and evangelism are now common parts of team culture. Figures like Billy Zioli use energetic, showman-like preaching styles tailored to athletes, emphasizing simple, direct messages about faith. Billy Zioli, Billy. Got a couple Billies here. What a life he had.
Yeah, he was a spiritual advisor to President Ford. They actually became quite close and quite good friends after a certain period of time. But then he went into sports. He became the ministry guy in sports, leading services at Super Bowls, World Series, and then All-Star games. Billy Zioli was everywhere.
Yeah, he said the very reason why we do this and talk to these cats is, quote, they do have everything at age 23, money, fame, a sense of achievement, and yet they still feel so empty. So he was trying to fill a void because, these young guys have worked their whole lives up to this point and they found huge success and fame and money. And they were still like, all right, that's it. So yeah. He's trying to fill a void. And for many, he was, him and finding that relationship people had with Jesus and stuff was a true motivator and helped them beyond. Mark, when we think about religion in sports, we think about Christianity most of the time, but in the 70s and 80s, lots of guys converting to Islam.
That's right. Probably the most famous being Lou Alcindor, who becomes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And nobody thinks of him as Lou Alcindor. Everyone thinks of him as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And that was a big thing. I remember some lady called up a talk show and said, whatever happened to that really nice guy, Lou Alcindor? He was such a great player and he disappeared.
Right.
And I mentioned the fact that I remember as a kid looking at boxing records and seeing Cassius Clay winning all these heavyweight titles. And all of a sudden there's this guy, Muhammad Ali. What happened to Cassius Clay? So, and then there was another basketball player, Walt Hazard, who played in the NBA many years, played at UCLA, ended up coaching UCLA. And he changed his name to Abdul Rahman was the last name. I think it was Mahid with the first name. But when he went back to coach UCLA, he went back to Walt Hazzard as just a professional name because there was too much confusion as to who is this person, who is that. But yeah, it was a great deal of conversions to Muslim.
Double reverse in the West. The Houston Astros and the LA Dodgers entered the season with opposite expectations, but Houston started strong while Los Angeles struggled badly. Houston's improvement comes from better pitching, notably, Bill, a guy by the name of J.R. Richard.
Gosh, I love J.R. Richard because he was tall and mean and could throw the ball a zillion miles an hour. Well, he ended up winning 20 games in 1976. And then after that, he won 74 games over the next 4 seasons. But man, what a sad ending. He's what is he? 10-1, 1.9 ERA in 1980, and he has a stroke. And that's the last time he ever pitched in the major leagues. Houston gave him like 3 chances to try to come back, but he could never overcome that. But boy, back in 76, 77, 78, that man was dominant.
J.R. Richard, I think of a right-handed version of Aroldis Chapman who was a starting pitcher instead of, so like Chapman comes in and throws 1 inning. That was J.R. Richard for 8 or 9 innings back then.
Yep.
He was something. This week in baseball, the San Francisco Giants thrived despite a city workers' strike that forced fans to endure poor conditions, drawing nearly 25,000 fans anyway behind Gary Matthews and Ken Reach. They went 4-1 and climbed into a first-place tie. And Bill, what about a guy who was on the cover in March of Sports Illustrated? White Sox owner Bill Veeck.
Yeah, well, Bill Veeck had many great ideas. One of them, iffy. He wanted the White Sox, or he had the White Sox wear white sweatshirts under their uniforms, which didn't make a lot of batters happy because they said it was blinding them, the sun off their white jerseys or white sweatshirts. So he came up with another idea. He said, when we go to New York, we will wear wigs. But manager Paul Richards said, yeah, we're not doing that. Bill Veeck had great ideas. Those weren't 2 of them.
Yeah, I remember. We all remember the shorts. I don't remember the sweaters.
Yeah, little white sweatshirts. I think one of the batters, I don't remember the name, came out and said, hey, get the pitcher to change it. It's blinding us because the fact that the sun is hitting that and getting in our eyes. So,
in the old days of baseball in the early 1900s, a lot of players they had like little sweaters they would wear. They're like woolen sweaters. They would put on and wear like it was almost like warm-ups before the game.
Wow.
No thanks. Anything else from baseball that week, guys? Jump out at you?
I was going to mention George Scott, the Milwaukee first baseman, not to be confused with George C. Scott, the Academy Award-winning actor. Anyway, Hank Aaron said to him that he was tipped him off that part of his slump was he was keeping his hands too close to his body. So he watched film of himself and he said, God, Hank's right. So what happened is he had his first homer of the season after watching that film. So Hank was a great teacher too.
Absolutely. And I remember when George Scott got traded to the Red Sox, Booma. They all called him Booma in Fenway.
And
traded for Cecil Cooper, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And one other thing, the player of the week that week, my favorite Tiger, Willie Horton. He and Earl Wilson's the reason I became a Tiger fan.
I thought it was Rusty Staub.
No, late 60s. Willie Horton was only 26 years old. I thought he was like 35. I was like, I love Willie Horton.
Always
was a pitcher. And Willie Horton's still alive, still with us. But anyway, he was the DH for the Tigers in 76. That week he went 12 for 22. That's a .545 batting percentage. Scored 6 times, drove across 11 runs, and hit 3 homers.
I love this quote by Dave Parker of the Pittsburgh Pirates. It stood the test of time. If you hear any noise, it's just me and the boys bopping. And the Cobra was one of the big boppers back in the 70s. Yeah. Big scare for the Bullies. You always think that maybe you'll get beat, but I never thought it would come to this. The quote comes from Ross Lawnsbury reacting to a tense Game 7 situation. It reflects the unexpected pressure on the Flyers, a dominant team suddenly on the brink of elimination. They were going up against Toronto, and facing a Game 7 do or die that they would end up winning. But boy, it was a scary one for the Flyers. And Billy, what about the Islanders Sabres matchup?
Well, I'm going to first set this up. This is about the Islanders goaltender. They called him Battling Billy Smith. Billy Smith is known as the Dave Schultz of NHL netminders. So we set that up. So the Sabres had a guy named Danny Gare, played wing. He's standing in front of Billy Smith, and he's just hitting him with a stick. He's hitting Smith in his pants with a stick, trying to distract him. That didn't work. So Smith got mad. He pounced on Gare, hit him with a bunch of punches, threw him to the ice, and then, well, he sat on him. Not sure how that ends a fight by just sitting on him, but maybe it was a wrestling move. But Billy Smith was known for fighting and hitting people with sticks, so it went up perfect for him.
I mean, there was a wrestler named the Earthquake.
I love that guy because he would walk into the ring and do that boom, 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 boom. Yeah. That's a great. I remember seeing that in 1990 with you at Channel 9.
And then he would just sit on you at the end.
Yes,
and that was his finishing.
So maybe
move.
he was watching Billy Smith.
Right.
There you go.
A pair of non-swinging singles. You know, we spoke last week with a couple of women who were big-time doubles players, and Pam Whitecross made it clear that the reason that they played doubles lots of times was the money. They needed the money. The purses were so small back in the day that, you know, you played doubles as well. Not the case anymore, but back then, Freddie McNair struggled for recognition, often being mistaken for hotel or club staff despite being a ranked pro, but his real success came in doubles, with Sherwood Stewart forming one of the top U.S. teams almost overnight. Mark, Sherwood Stewart, tell us about him.
Well, you know, he actually ended up being a really good player. And what's interesting is you look at him in the picture, and he's got like a beard, and you know, he doesn't look like this guy that you think would be this super athlete. I mean, he kind of looks like an accountant, you know. But he ended up being a pretty good doubles player. I think at one point in time, Sherwood was ranked, I want to say, number 4 in doubles. I think that was like in the early 80s in 1983. So I don't think Freddie McNair had the kind of career that his partner Sherwood Stewart did, but had a really good career at doubles. Obviously, a much better doubles player than a singles player. And not to be confused with Sherwood. What's the guy's name?
Schwartz.
No, the one that
Sherwood
started
Schwartz.
Gilligan's Island.
Yes, Sherwood Schwartz.
Yeah, and the Brady Bunch, right?
Yeah.
The duo rose to number 2 in U.S. doubles rankings behind Stan Smith and Bob Lutz after a strong run of tournament wins. Bill, these guys either won or they lost a bunch in a row. They were streaky.
That was sort of odd. When they first got together playing doubles tennis, they won their first 6 finals. That's included the French Open. Then after that, they lost 9 of their next 11. And then they broke up, went to different guys, but I went to different partners. But I just thought, man, you start off so strong, then you lose 9 of 11. What happens in there? Did someone catch up to them? What changed?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I guess like in any sport, you know, you just find a rhythm and get into it. And then when you're not in it, you're lost.
I mean, he won the French Open doubles title in 76 and 82. He won the Australian Open double title in 84. So, I mean, and like I said, he was number 4 in March of 1980, double player in the world. And after he finished playing, he became a coach. And you know what one of his students was? Do you remember this tennis player? Zina Garrison?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
McNair and Stewart became early advocates for better recognition and prize money, essentially pushing a doubles lib movement. It's a travesty. Doubles is half the program. We ought to at least get a third of the money, said Freddie McNair. Now, as we've mentioned in the past, singles players like the greats, they never play doubles. You never see the greats play doubles anymore. It's too bad. It was a really fun visual for the fan to watch good doubles tennis. You know, it's much quicker than the singles action. All right. Watching their steps, Steve Prefontaine and Frank Shorter were among 20 elite runners studied by scientists to uncover what makes world-class endurance athletes different. Bill, some of this stuff hard to believe, like their pulse.
Yeah, let's say I'll start off. Elite marathoners, their average beats per minute is 40. The average person is 60 to 80 beats per minute. John Farrington could lower his heart rate, and he was a marathoner as well, could lower his heart rate to 20 beats per minute. And I think when we talked about this, Mark said that means you're dead.
It does.
I mean, that's amazing. Scary, but amazing.
Yeah, the only people with lower heartbeats than that are vampires.
Exactly. Maybe Mark, he could very well be.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, my heartbeat, my standing heartbeat or pulse is like in the 50s. I want to say, because I do so much
That's
cardio.
average. That's basically 60 is average. 60 to 80, they said average.
60 average. So I'm like in the
76.
50s. So that's pretty good. One time
Yeah.
they actually had me in the 40s. It's not good to have too slow of a pulse though.
No.
No, man, that's when I read that. I read like 3 times thinking, man, is that guy even alive?
For the record, because somebody's got to keep score.
Mark, Tom Nasalki, who's that?
Tom Nasalki is hired by the Houston Rockets. He's replacing John Egan, who was fired after a 40-42 record. Now, what I love about Nasalki is he had a long career in coaching in NBA. He actually coached, which I love. He coached Dallas Chaparral. Well, he was an assistant with the Milwaukee Bucks when they won a title with Kareem or Lou Alcindor at the time. Then he coached the Dallas Chaparrals in the ABA for a year. Then he went to the Seattle Sonics and coached them for a year. Then he went back to the ABA with the San Antonio Spurs, which means he coached the same franchise in 2 different cities, Dallas Chaparral, San Antonio Spurs. Then he went to the Utah Stars, then Puerto Rico, then back to the NBA with the Rockets for 3 years. And I believe in 1977, he was the NBA Coach of the Year. And in 72, he was the ABA Coach of the Year. So there's not many people that have been the ABA and NBA Coach of the Year, and then also been an assistant coach on an NBA championship team.
Sounds like a lot of the things Larry Brown did.
Yeah.
How about this, Bill? We can't get enough fights in the NHL, not even come playoff time.
No, this was back to the Flyers Maple Leafs. Referee Wally Harris, he called 185 penalty minutes in Game 6 at Toronto. And one more Flyer, believe it or not, was charged with assault. Bob, they called him the Hound Kelly. He threw his glove into the stands, and it struck usherette Jan Brown, who just happened to be the wife of NHL linesman John Brown, who amazingly enough did not work the game that all the penalties and fights were called. How do you do that? How do you throw your glove into the crowd and hit like a referee's wife? I mean, so he was charged.
Yeah. Well, he was like, oh, I know who that is.
That's right.
Damn.
He had to. I mean, got her.
More hockey. If this team needs me to score a goal, then it's in real trouble, said defenseman Bert Marshall after his first goal of the season with 19 seconds to play in the final period helped the Islanders to a 4-1 victory over Buffalo. Get this. Bert Marshall scored 17 goals in 868 career games, covering 14 seasons. So he's right. He did not score. He was not a scoring machine from the defensive end of the ice. Wow,
What's that average? Less than 1?
Less than 1. No, little 17 goals in 14 seasons.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, a
little more.
Real
Little
stories.
more. Wow, that's insane.
Faces in the crowd.
John Holland, Mark, he's a baseball player, right?
Yeah, 17 years old. He's a pitcher. He threw 2 perfect games and 3 starts for South Florence High School. He struck out 43 of the 59 batters he faced. In 5 games, he's permitted only 5 hits in 33 innings. He was obviously the player of the month of the Mid-Atlantic Coaches Association. So you're wondering, these are great numbers, but does it translate to anything? You know, a lot of people have numbers. Well, so he ends up getting drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers in that 1976 amateur draft in the 31st round. He actually also, a year later, he signed with the Houston Astros as a catcher. He spent 8 seasons with a lot of minor league baseball teams, and A ball, double A, and triple A, okay? And he actually played in the triple A World Series in '85 with the Syracuse Chiefs that won the pennant that year. So a long professional career, but, never made it to the show.
Man, chased that dream for a long time, like so many players did back then. What about Donna Southwick, Bill? Who's she?
She's 19 years old, and she ended up winning the National Junior College Association national title in gymnastics. That's pretty good if you just stop there. But no, she ended up going to Oregon State. She became the first female All-American there. She also was the first woman at OSU to receive an athletic scholarship. Very impressive.
Absolutely.
I'd say so.
All these faces in the crowd, people,
Yep.
getting their due. Because you know what? They were all doing it for one reason. They loved playing sports.
Yep.
19th hole. I am the world's most unathletic person. People laughingly ask me why I bother subscribing to Sports Illustrated. The answer is simple: for fun, for enough sports savvy to keep me from total humiliation at the office, and for articles of such unparalleled quality as Frank DeFord's Religion in Sport. Absolutely superb, says Gail O'Hare from Minneapolis. Well, Gail, I agree with everything you said, but the 19th hole is for people who are really pissed off, like
Yes.
Ron Jaffa, Billy.
Stanford, Connecticut boy. He says, I enjoyed H.R. Courson's poem, American Pastime, but I have one correction to make. Mordecai Three Finger Brown did not get his nickname because he had only 3 fingers on his throwing hand, as Courson believes. Brown had 4 fingers on that hand. He lost his right index finger in a boyhood incident. The nickname refers to the number of digits Brown actually used while pitching, namely his thumb and his middle and ring fingers. Trivia lives. Ron Jaffa.
You know, it's funny. I'm known as Mark One Finger Hoffman when I'm driving a car and someone cuts me off.
Yes, and that's not from a childhood accident.
No, it's not. Anger management issues.
But it's amazing that he felt, Ron, this struck him so much that when he read that H.R. Courson poem, all he thought was, that is not how he lost his fingers. He has 4 of them. That it just really struck him.
Although I will say this, 50 years later, if I had asked either of you guys about 3-fingered Mordecai Brown and said, how many fingers did he have? I know I would have said 3.
I would have said 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a great little tidbit there that he actually had 4, but he used 3 to pitch. Love that. That's great. Great way to end things. That's our look back at the May 3rd, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated, the unforgettable cover featuring Mike Schmidt, the power-hitting third baseman who was striking out and smashing home runs for the Phillies. We dove deep into the internal battle between contact and power, and we still are talking about that to this day. A great thank you to our guest, Jamie Moyer, for joining us. For Mark Hoffman and Bill Mahoney, I'm Scott Johnston, and we are past our prime. See you next week.
Goodbye.
See ya.